Yo, what's up? It's your boy DJ 10th Power coming to you from the Lion's Den. Welcome to another episode of the QI Podcast. This is a special 3-part special that I have coming to you. And I want to give a special shout out to our producers, Angry Bo Productions, for making this happen. Now, the first time I seen this person that I have this conversation with in this 3-part series, it was during a music video from my favorite artist. That would be Prince. And this was a red bone, platinum blonde honey, or we used to call him back in my day a Stone Cold Fox. That was behind the keyboards with Lisa Coleman. That is the 1999 video. For y'all who don't know what I'm talking about, go check it out. She was beautiful then, she's beautiful now, inside and out. And that's why I say conversation instead of an interview, because Jill tends to reel you in. It's like a conversation with your best friend or your sister. She's just that real. I titled this 3-part series in a song that's named after her or written for her by Prince. She's Always in My Hair, Jill Jones, Part 1. Check this out. Welcome everybody to the Lion's Den. I am your host, DJ 10th Power. Today I have singer, songwriter, producer, actress, Miss Jill Jones.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good, a little frazzled, you know.
What's going on? Why the frazzled?
Yeah, quite a lot going on. We're definitely, I guess, in the throes of our national election, so there's a lot of that going on, a lot of volunteering, and then there's just your normal work day that you're doing. So
speaking of that, I know we were supposed to speak last night, and we decided to delay it for a day so we could catch the debates.
Yes.
What did you think about?
We should have kept our meeting last night. I was, I don't know, maybe we should have just stuck with our plan. That was something else, huh? Wow. It was like, I had stuff to do, and I wasted it by looking at this. It was like watching Jerry Springer, one of those weird shows. I just didn't know what universe are we in?
I got lucky. I missed the first 15 minutes,
wow,
which I was told was the worst, absolutely the worst part of it.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to it, I expected there to be some arguing back and forth.
Yeah.
But here's my take on it. We already know Trump does not respect Biden. So he feels like, or any rules, right? Yeah. So he's going to just talk over anybody he feels like he can do that to until, Mr. Wallace put him in check. And
finally he did.
Yeah, and now I'm hearing that the commission is going to do some things to make sure that this doesn't happen for the next debate.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. They should figure something out, because I woke up today thinking I wouldn't even do another debate with him. I'd be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even bother, because after sort of the white supremacist comment, it was kind of like, I felt like he was using his platform just for this. Like that was his main objective, to sort of dog whistle to his weird fans, his stands out there to assemble, defend me, protect me. I don't know where this guy, didn't we all know somebody like this in school and we outgrew those situations?
Absolutely. Everybody has one bully that they had to deal with. And I still remember to this day who mine was. But, I crack up when I drive by certain homes that have the Trump Pence 2020 flag or whatever it is that they have in front of their home, because, I've been taught, and I use this with myself and with people that I know, you are the company that you keep. Yep. So if you support Trump and that's good for you. I'd rather know. So I know up front that you're racist. You don't believe, one of my mantras here, one of my big things is that this country does not protect its women. So, if they put a leader that's a sexual assaulter in the Oval Office, you don't protect women.
It's crazy. And
I don't get it. I never thought we would see this day, but it's gotten to the point where I'm just not surprised by anything.
Well, I think when a country becomes morally bereft and it was built on loose morals anyway. I think that from the get-go, they started out kind of in total contradiction. You know, I was reading about the Brownists. I believe those were the ones who came over on the Mayflower at one point, or some of those pilgrims who came from England. And like John Brown, I think his name was John Brown, I don't remember, but he was like the one who started this kind of cultish edge towards changing against the Church of England. And so then they all came here. And ultimately, after a bunch of nonsense and whatever rituals they were up to, John Brown went back to England and went back to be in the Church of England in some like high position, a vicar or something. But he left all those other people.
Oh wow! So he just
like,
why did he just take the trash with him?
oh
Right?
my God, yeah, did not. So, I mean, we're in a really very altered state of reality.
Yep.
And I hope it rectifies itself, or people kind of saw through that. Because I think, for me, I don't have to watch another debate. I know that now, only because, I mean, what more could Trump say?
Right.
To align yourself full on for my ears to hear, there's no way they can spin that for me. I know what I heard, and I know what I saw. And that's just not the company I want to keep.
Right. And I mean, and even if he would have said, you know, what people were wanting to hear from him, would we actually believe that he meant it anyway?
Nope.
I wouldn't believe it. You know, he could say it a million times, I'll never believe it and neither would his followers. I don't believe that.
No, but what I found astounding is just how bad he is thinking on his feet. Like, this dude lies. Like,
Yep.
he really, like, we knew he lied.
Right.
But now I know that all those lies, he comes out prepared with the lie. This was on his feet thinking, and he's not really good at that. It's like he was looking at Chris Wallace, and then he looked to the left in the middle of being confronted with this. And then you see like Joe Biden on the side going, yeah, say it, say it. You know, it was just like, oh my God. I mean, I'm all for people transforming themselves and, you know, becoming better people. That's what we're here, and hopefully what our lifetimes are supposed to be about, to be better.
Right.
And maybe so superb and excellent, like people like Prince and those people who excel at high levels, so they don't have to come back again. But Trump's going to come back as like a bug, and then he's going to start all over and then be a fly or something. I just think that he's racking up a lot of karma, a lot of karmic. He doesn't seem to learn.
Every dog has its day, and I say that all the time. Every dog has its day, and his day will come. I just hope that I get to see it. That's the thing for me, because what the changes that he's made and how he's flipped things on the environment and things of that nature, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about my grandkids. I'm worried about my grown kids. That's who it's going to affect at this point. So this vote is, when people say this vote is about tomorrow, it absolutely is.
It is.
Of the Supreme Court justices that he's putting in place and around the country.
Yeah, it's pretty, that could be catastrophic for, you know, our children, because what I really feel is that somewhere in this quest for individualism, and, you know, as Black people, we feel like, oh, we've made it, we don't have to worry. I think we slacked off after the civil rights era in the 70s and the 80s, and maybe started vicariously living through our role model celebrities and whoever, but we slacked off and it fell off, and we did not maintain our gains. And that's my new thing. I was speaking with someone, a very powerful female leader who had been at the UN, and one of her things was about maintaining gains, and that in anything, whatever, I kind of started to apply it to just everyday life. You know, if you don't keep the house clean, even just the basics of maintaining the gains you made, cleaning your porch or your bedroom, and you come in and you just set it all back another week, that's not great. It's like there's a discipline in what, and sort of a vigilance that I think we need to have, because we are being pushed 10 paces back. And I don't care if, I know I've seen a lot of different African American men, primarily in politics, siding with Trump, and I can't believe that they're standing there after, particularly after today, and trying to defend it. There's really, I think there's some self-examination that needs to be required, and as you said, this is for our children and those that have to walk around in our skin, our blood, and I shudder to think that it would become such a totalitarian regime or authoritarian, where they started rounding up our children and their children and murdering them and slaughtering them with genocide. Because what more after these little steps, ultimate power corrupts. And that's my fear for the future, for particularly people of color, with these types of people, and their fan base is so bloodthirsty. Like now, he's ramped them up so much. It's like it's a drug for them, and it's really crazy. So that's just my take on it.
I like your take. Okay, so now let's get into the biography.
Yes.
While you're here.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so your mother was a manager of Teena Maria.
She was.
And you started singing background and writing songs.
Yes, I did.
When did you discover, or when did Teena discover that, hey, there's this beautiful woman, a young lady that has this talent here, and I want to work with her?
Well, Teena moved into our house. I must have been about 14. And when she was there, we shared, we shared a bathroom. So it was like a Jack and Jill. And Teena must have been about 19 or 20. Yeah, 20, I would say. And we were she treated me like a little sister. But also during those late nights, I guess it was like in her room, I could hear her playing guitar or working on things. And she would hear me in my room doing things like rehearsing for a musical at school, and so she would offer helpful advice on things to not sound like Barbra Streisand, because I needed my own style. And then I would go in her room sometimes and just watch her play, and then I would give her word ideas or sing things to her. And then slowly she would ask me, because she was writing, she wanted to hear how things were. I think it was just easy. She knew I could carry a tune, but I could also hold counter melodies while she was trying to work out other parts in her songs. Because Teena was like a full-on, her concept of writing encompassed a lot more than just writing a song. She had production in her head. Like, she had the strings and horns. Like, she was already thinking in that advanced stage how she wanted the result of her songs to be. So that's just sort of how it happened. And then when she started rehearsing a band, and I think because when you're really young, your voice is a little malleable. You can blend very well. You can find harmonies and kind of get the sound that would go really well with her voice. And her friend Mickey down in Venice, we would go and hang out at her house by Venice Beach, and we'd all just sing together 3-part harmony in things like the Supremes, or old Motown songs. Actually, Smokey Robinson was always a big one, because he always had great harmony parts, and it really trained my ear. It really trained me so I wouldn't move and moving melody lines or things like that. We could move, it was really great to learn thirds, fourths, fifths, those kind of things.
So where did the songwriting come from for you, though? I mean, because you starting at 14, that's a real young age to already have that in your lap, that talent.
Well, I think that one of the songs we did was Cradle Robin' Me, and that was all metaphorical and using it was sort of a metaphor. And I think Ricky Lee Jones's record had come out, and then Stevie Nicks' album was out. So those women, knowing that they wrote their albums, I mean, we have so little of that today. But for me, it was quite inspiring. It was almost unheard of to not be a female in, I guess, the late 70s. In the 70s particularly was probably the biggest time, I think, for female songwriters. You had Janice Ian, you had Joni Mitchell. There were so many women involved in their own songwriting, unlike today where there's like 25 people on one song. And I think that the women's voices and what they felt and what they thought was probably the most authentic during those years. I think that the 80s, we saw men putting words into women's mouths, but the few stars and women who maintained that, Teena was one of those in the forefront who was writing her songs. So I started because Teena encouraged me. We were trying to write a musical when I was really into mythology, and I wanted to write about Vulcan, the god. And we wrote a song called Vulcan Man. I remember that. She would be on the piano. I had piano ideas, and she came in and expanded on them. And then we would perform them for my mom, my dad, and the family, because at that point my mom was, I was growing up in the Gordy family. So in that family as well, and Teena was included in all that. It was highly creative, and it really wanted you to be creative. Like Barry would get a group of people together, watch a movie, so there was always a debate, a discussion. What did you think? And children were not excluded from these conversations. In fact, your intellect and your thought process was really encouraged. And those nights sometimes would turn into Teena picking up a guitar and singing, me doing backing vocals. So it was so, and all the children, his kids, everybody's kids, his sisters and brothers had kids, everybody tried to be presenting something creative-wise. One of the sons was a classical pianist. I mean, it was just normal. I think one of the jokes was that one of Barry's sons, Terry, I believe, was an attorney and going to law school and very straight. And everyone was like, yeah, well, Terry's a lawyer. It was like, yeah, okay. But I'm only using that as a joke. It was just kind of like everybody else was. Carrie, the other son, was doing music, and then there was Kennedy or Rockwell. So it was definitely a house filled with lots of people just being allowed to explore. And so Teena also was very generous in letting me write, and Mickey wrote songs with her. Teena would write with you. It was really, and she was really fair about the splits. She was fair about your contribution. And I didn't meet many people after that who were like that either.
So, me knowing me being in that atmosphere, my mind would be blown. But this was normal for you, because I heard you mention also that, Rick James, I used to,
He came over for
yeah.
barbecues, and he was working with Teena. Yeah, Rick was funny. And then I started to, Rick had rented a house in like Beverly Hills, like Coldwater Canyon. And I started like my school was in the area, and I started ditching school at I'd leave at 10 o'clock or around 9:45 because we had a nutrition break. And I'd go and take friends up to Rick's house at like 10 in the morning. They weren't even up, but I know Jackie, his background singer, would be so kind to open the door and let me in. Because, there was a part of them which was kind of like, okay, these are these Gordy kids, and, even though I'm not full-on Gordy, but it was still affiliated with Motown. And finally, after so many days of bringing my friend Alicia up and a few other ones, and Rick is coming downstairs, and we're all sitting there, these like 15 and 16-year-olds, hi! It was too much. I got in trouble. He called my mom, and I was like, ratted me out, I couldn't believe it. They put up with it for a while, and it was just like, Jill's taking people to Rick James's house after they've been up all night at like her friends from school. And she doesn't even have a driver's license. I was borrowing my friend's car. Yeah, it was like, oh, let's go.
Now, okay, so from there you transitioned to actually going on the road with Teena.
I did, and we had a good, experience. It was our first tour, though, was we opened for Sean Cassidy, which was
Teeny
really
Mama.
very, yeah, it was very unusual because I think it was the release of Sucker for Love. So singing Sucker for Love every time, that was her last song.
Mm.
Also Deja Vu was a really bizarre one to be singing to these kids, I'm not coming back no more. And these kids are like 9, 10, little white kids, in Colorado. I remember being at Red Rock, Colorado. I had on some tight spandex thing with wings on the back of them. And Linda Little, I think, I don't remember what she was wearing, but similar. She had maybe a halo. I don't know.
Mm.
And it was that era where all the band people are like dressed up,
Right.
cowboy. One has a cowboy hat, another one has a beret. I don't know. Well, you know what it means.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody had a personality.
Wow, that's hilarious.
And then Teena was just hated that tour because she's like, I go out there and I like make eye contact, and they're like 9, 9 years old, and we're like, I'm just a sucker for your love, and it
That
was
was
just like,
jam.
oh my God. And these little kids were like just staring at us. It was
Hmm.
crazy.
So eventually you end up on a tour where you run into Mr. Rogers Nelson.
Yes, we I think we did some dates with Rick James, and that tour was kind of crazy. That was very different
Right.
than the Sean Cassidy one.
A whole lot.
And oh yeah, it was like one extreme to that. Yeah, when I think about it. And then that tour though was really weird because I think it was what, the Fire It Up or Fire,
Yeah,
one of
fire.
them. And that one was not having a really great turnout at certain cities. And somehow we crisscrossed because everybody kind of had the same booking agent, Nick Masters, I believe. And then we just jumped right on Prince's tour, on the Dirty Mind tour, because he was selling out everywhere. And it definitely afforded Teena the ability to really keep the money coming in for her shows. In those days, record companies weren't really taking what they take now from the artist. So she was still, everybody had decent salaries and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we met Prince on that tour and opening for him, and that was very interesting. We had a rough start at the beginning when we met in the hallway going up the stairs. I just couldn't believe how small our stage was because we didn't have a relationship with them. In our previous shows, like, we had a bigger stage because Rick knew us too. Also, Rick had a lot of people as well as we did in our band, so they kind of knew the ratio. Prince and those guys were like 6 people. So, but they took up a lot of space too, so I was a little more like, oh, well, thanks for the stage. And that was like really my first comment to Prince. I didn't even know. They're like, Jill, this is Prince. And I was like, thanks for the stage. I don't even know what came out of me. It was like just something flew out of my mouth. And eventually on the tour, became friends with Andre and him. And, and that's kind of history.
And so later on, it turns out that he reaches out to you because he likes your voice and he wants you to come help him out with the singing background.
He reached out because I reached out. I mean, we saw each other. We saw each other through the years, but I was never really sure if that was the direction I wanted to go. At one point, I was wanting to go to drama school and theater, and I wasn't sure. So it took me kind of like 2 years, and then at one point, I wanted to be an occupational therapist. And I had, enrolled in school to do that. But right when I kind of started going to those classes, then, he popped up, and then it kind of became for real. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, yeah. And so I called him back about that. And then he was on the last night of the Controversy tour. And then he called me back. He said, I'll be in town in a couple weeks and let's do something. And that's really exactly how it went.
Wow. And that does it for episode 1 of my interview with Jill Jones. She's always in my hair. I'd like to thank her for giving us her time. I also like to give a shout out once again to our producers, Angry Bull Productions, for making this happen. If you like this conversation or not, you can hit us up, or if you want to be interviewed on the QI podcast, or if you have just anything that you would like to share with us, hit me at theqipodcast@gmail.com. You can also subscribe or hit me up on the social media, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, the QI Podcast. Until part 2 of this episode, I am your host coming to you from the Lion's Den. I am DJ 10th Power. Peace.